Okay, hello everyone. So let's take you through the key stages of a model answer to the question that you're looking at here. The question is, in what ways did the Reichstag Fire help Hitler increase his power in Germany in the years 1933 to 34? Now, the key point about this question, which has come up on several occasions, and it's usually 12 marks, which is about 18 minutes, is that you really need to understand the sequencing of the building blocks. You really need to understand the precise details, the dates when things happened, and how one thing led to another. So what I've done here is I've sort of like sketched out a little diagram for you, which I'm going to walk and talk you through the details of it. Okay, so you can sort of see how the Reichstag Fire, which happened on the 27th of February 1933, had a knock-on effect in terms of increasing Hitler's power from in the period 1933 to 34. Okay, so let's just zoom in on the separate parts of it. Okay. So remember, Hitler became Chancellor on the 30th of January 1933. He was very much, his power was very much limited at that particular point. And remember that one of the first decisions he made is he set a date for new Reichstag elections on the 5th of March 1933 to try to increase his support, and immediately launched a big election campaign. And then 4 weeks into that election campaign, on the 27th of February, this unexpected event happened, the Reichstag Fire. And as it happened, the person who burned down the Reichstag was a communist. He was a Dutch communist called Marius van der Lubbe. Okay, he wasn't acting under any orders of the Communist Party, but that's not the point. Okay, the point is Hitler claimed that he was acting under orders. It was a lie, but Hitler could see the mileage, the benefits of whipping up fear that the Reichstag Fire was a plot, a signal by the Communist Party to launch a violent revolution. Okay, so moving over there, the arrow there makes that point. Hitler blamed the communists, claiming that they were planning a violent seizure of power, and that the fire was like a signal to begin that. Okay, completely untrue, but nevertheless that was the claim. And the important thing is the middle classes of Germany, who were already devastated by the Great Depression, the impact that had had on Germany for the last 3 or 4 years, the middle classes, alarmed by the increasing number of votes for the Communist Party, were now desperately worried that the communists were about to seize power. And of course, the communists had seized power, then the middle classes would have lost all their property, their wealth, their status. So because Hitler so successfully whipped up this fear, he won the middle class vote. Okay, and the arrow there basically says a week later, on the 5th of March, okay, when those Reichstag elections happened, Nazi support, which in November 1932, a couple of months earlier, when which had been the previous Reichstag elections, the Nazis had achieved a good vote. They were the largest party. They got a third of the vote, 196 seats. But it was actually in decline. Now suddenly on the 5th of March 1933, of course, the vote swung back up, and they achieved a phenomenal 288 seats in those Reichstag elections, which was nearly half the votes. And that was mainly those middle class voters, people with property and wealth, who turned to vote for Hitler because they saw Hitler as the only politician capable of leading Germany to a secure future in which communism would be crushed. Okay, for all the reasons that we've already discussed, Hitler was the Nazis were the only party who had stormtroopers, the SA, who were seen to be a party of action capable of crushing communism. Okay, so those are the key points on that side. Now, let's just go back to the key building blocks for this particular answer. So again, just have a quick look at what we're saying here. So you're saying that on the 27th of February there was the Reichstag Fire. Okay, what that did, is it gave Hitler an excuse to blame the communists, which a week later increased the support for the Nazi Party. Okay, those are the sort of like first 2 or 3 points that you would make in your answer. The next point you want to make is the day after the Reichstag fire, on the 28th of February, Hitler used the Reichstag fire to persuade President Hindenburg to use the powers given to him by Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution to issue an emergency decree called the Decree for the Protection of People and State. Learn that off by heart. And that decree gave Hitler emergency powers. Now, a decree is the same as a law. It is a law that has been signed off by the president, by one person. It hasn't been signed off by the Reichstag. It has been signed off by the president. And the Decree for the Protection of People and State, which was passed on the 28th of February 1933, gave Hitler emergency powers. Okay? Now, the emergency powers that it gave to Hitler, there were 2 of them. First of all, it suspended civil liberties. Now, what that basically means is it allowed Hitler to arrest people without trial. Secondly, and now remember this, up until this point, the German police were controlled by the separate state governments. There were about 25 of them, the regional governments of Germany. In other words, the government in Berlin, of which Hitler was the chancellor, did not control policing. Now, what the Decree for the Protection of People and State did is it allowed Hitler as chancellor to take the control of policing away from the state governments and concentrate it in his own hands. Okay, so the Decree for the Protection of People and State was the immediate result of the Reichstag fire. It was the 28th of February and it was passed the day after the Reichstag fire. And Hitler persuaded President Hindenburg to pass that using the powers given to President Hindenburg way back in 1919 by the Weimar Constitution. Now, that made Hitler enormously powerful. Okay, and again, looking at the diagram, just moving down. Okay, so the next point you want to make is Hitler used the powers given to him by the Decree for the Protection of People and State to arrest communists, and he started that straight away. The day after, on the 1st of March, Hitler started arresting communists. Okay, he claimed that they were the enemies of Germany, and the very first concentration camps were very quickly created the day after. They were actually disused factories that had been closed down during the Great Depression, and Hitler literally ordered the stormtroopers, the SA, to string barbed wire around these factories, and they started arresting communists, using those powers because Hitler had the power to arrest without trial. Now, as a result of that, so we're talking about the knock-on effect, this is why we're doing these arrows, Hitler was able to prevent the communist members of the Reichstag, so the elected members of communists who had been elected on the 5th of March 1933, so 5 days later the elections happened, as we said. The communists won votes. They were a big party. They were effectively a very, very strong party in the Reichstag. But those communist members, because Hitler had been given the powers to arrest communists, Hitler arrested the communist members of the Reichstag. Now, why was that important? Because on the 23rd of March, okay, just a couple of weeks after the Reichstag election, Hitler was presenting a motion to the Reichstag to vote on. And what he wanted to do was to get the Reichstag to vote to change the constitution. It's what we call an enabling bill. Now, normal laws require a 50% pass, a 50% vote to get a law passed. But because this is a special law changing the constitution, the constitution said you needed to get a 2/3 vote to get to pass an enabling law that would change the constitution. And so to get that law passed, Hitler arrested the communist members so they couldn't vote. Okay, so then, again moving down, when that vote happened on the 23rd of March, okay, the two-third majority was secured. Now, the Nazis formed a lot of that vote, but the Catholic Centre Party were the other key party that chose to vote with the Nazis. So if you get into a detailed question on the Enabling Act, make sure you make that point, okay? So the Enabling Act, effectively, what it did, and it was passed the day after, on the 24th of March, it gave Hitler the power now to pass laws by himself without the Reichstag's approval. So those are the sort of the key point you want to develop there. It gave Hitler the power to pass laws by himself without the Reichstag's approval. Strictly speaking, it's set up for a 4-year period, so it should have terminated in 1937, but Hitler quietly ignored that one later on. Okay, so pulling back, you've now then got these two key powers, okay, that Hitler has been given, represented by the grey arrows, okay, so that arrow there, the powers given to him by the decree for the protection of people and state, okay, were emergency powers to arrest people and to take control of policing. That's that arrow there. And then you've got the second arrow, zooming in a bit, which represents the power to pass laws by himself that was given to him by the Enabling Act. So those two powers together that were given to him on different dates, so again, just emphasise that first one, okay, the power to arrest people and to take control of policing was given to him on the 28th of February, and the second one, the power to pass laws by himself, was given to him by the Enabling Act on the 24th of March. Those powers together were used over the next few months, from the spring of 1933 to the winter of 1934, to create a one-party dictatorship. Now, there are three key things that you need to mention when you talk about how Hitler used these powers. Okay. One, on the 2nd of May 1933, mention the fact that Hitler used these powers to crush the trade unions. On the 14th of July 1933, Hitler used these powers to pass a law that declared Germany to be a one-party state. And on the 30th of January 1934, Hitler used these powers to abolish the powers of those 25 federal states. All power now lay with Hitler in Berlin. There was no regional government in Germany at all. So Germany effectively was now a one-party dictatorship. Now it's really important you include that last bit, because that comes back to looking at the question as a whole. Revisit that question. Notice, although it's about the Reichstag Fire, which happened on the 27th of February 1933, it's about how it helped Hitler increase his power in the years 1933 to 34. So you've got to basically make reference to something that happened in 1934 to access the full range of marks, which is why it's really important that you include that last part of the question here, okay, where you talk about the outcome, how he used those powers. Okay, so it looks like there's a lot of information there to put across, but you've got 18 minutes, okay, so just quickly to sum up in the last minute, okay, so basically your answer would sound something like this. 27th of February, the Reichstag Fire, the Reichstag was burnt down, a Dutch communist was caught. Hitler used that event to blame the communists, claiming that the communists were planning a violent seizure of power. That created middle-class fear that led to, on the 5th of March, the Nazis significantly increasing their vote, mainly from the middle classes in the Reichstag elections. The day after the Reichstag Fire, Hitler used the fire to persuade President Hindenburg to use the powers given to him by Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution to issue the Decree for the Protection of People and State, which gave Hitler emergency powers to arrest people without trial, take control of policing away from the state governments. Hitler then used these powers to arrest communists, putting them in concentration camps, that were created on the 1st of March 1933. As a result, he was able to prevent communist members of the Reichstag taking part in the vote in the Reichstag on the 23rd of March 1933 to change the constitution. That vote was to pass the Enabling Act that was passed on the 24th of March by a two-third majority in the Reichstag, which was needed for a law that changed the constitution. The Enabling Act gave Hitler the power to pass laws by himself without the Reichstag's approval. As a result, Hitler used all of these powers given to him by the Decree for the Protection of People of State and the Enabling Act to create a one-party dictatorship over the next few months, the key features of which were the crushing of the trade unions on the 2nd of May 1933, passing a law in July 1933 declaring Germany to be a one-party state, abolishing all the other political parties, and then crucially, on the 30th of January 1934, a year after he'd become Chancellor, the law for the reconstitution of the Reich abolished the powers of the federal states. All power now lay with Hitler in Berlin. There's the answer to that question. Thank you.